Hey, what's up? This is BreakmanX, and welcome to the game show on March 5th, 2025. How's it going, Mr. Burton?
Going great. Just another fun day. It's March. My favorite month of the year is finally here.
Oh, I wonder why that is. It couldn't be because of a certain round ball.
Nope, not at all.
I also enjoy March. I just had a fight with my contacts, just so everyone knows. Put the wrong stuff in my eyes. So I have these contacts that, like, you put hydrogen peroxide solution in, and then overnight it changes into saline. But I put the wrong stuff, so I literally just put, like, hydrogen peroxide in my eyes, and they hurt very badly. So that's why I have my glasses on. But anyway, Logan, how's it doing tonight? Hopefully your eyes are not on fire.
Yeah, no, I'm doing great, actually. Honestly, on the topic of glasses, I just got new glasses like last week, and it's been so nice. Everything's so clear.
Nice. That is fabulous. I'm glad that your eyes are not on fire. And Darria, also, I'm hoping that your eyes are also in the visual realm.
They are. I sleep in my contacts, and I have like the monthly ones. So on the topic of eyes, I am doing quite well.
Oh, good. No, I can see great. I just, ouch. But, anyway, we've got a special guest this evening who is coming to us from an undisclosed location that we cannot see. It's all very top secret, but he's a fabulous guest. We're happy to have him after he was on My Life in Gaming a couple months ago. Fenris Wolf Retro, how are you doing? Too secret.
I'm doing fantastic. Making the best of my current situation, as you all know. But yeah, as long as y'all can hear me, it should be good.
Yeah, you're sounding great now. That's awesome. It always tends to work out right around showtime, which is better than not during showtime. But no, we're super stoked to have you here tonight, Fenris. So the game show is a celebration of video games and our collective interests mixed with a healthy dose of humor while bringing in our favorite people in the game and movie industries on as guests. All right. So Fenris Wolf Retro, he is a retro tech that's been in the game for 12 years, got his start with repro carts, and started his retro game collection with repairing systems and games. Now he does mostly videos on console topics that he feels are either hardly talked about or doesn't have a good enough resources to show how to do right, like his recent Famicom video, which I post in the channel. Hope you've all done your homework and seen it. But let's go ahead and get started here. Fenris, what was your initial spark to get into gaming?
So in terms of like gaming in general, I've actually been playing video games basically all my life. My earliest memory, I'm not even joking, is I'm 3 years old in front of a big boxy CRT. My dad is asleep right behind me, and I'm playing Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64. So I've always been into video games. Like, it's just always been a part of my life. I decided to actually go a little bit more hardcore with it as I was getting older. But around like 2012, 2013, I actually kind of got tired of like the modern gaming scene at the time. Because it was either another flavor of Call of Duty, another God of War clone, or just another shovelware title that was based off the movie. And I was like, you know what was fun? The Nintendo 64 and the GameCube. You know what? Bump this. I'm just gonna go back. And yeah, that's kind of how it all went at this point.
I like it. Well, we obviously like games of all types here, but definitely retro games. So you are in good company, my friend. Jack, you're up.
Yeah. Yep. Well, again, Fenris, thank you for joining us. Let's start off with a little bit of a fun hypothetical. So you get a magic wand, you get to build your own arcade, and let's say you get to put any.
So what two arcade games? So I'm gonna One of them might be cheating, but I'm gonna go with the one that's not currently. The first one that I'd pick right off the bat is Killer Instinct.
Okay.
Like that is like one of my favorite fighting games from the arcade. And to this day, there aren't that many solutions that properly emulate the arcade version. If I remember correctly, it's because the arcade version ran in like a really weird refresh rate, so it's really difficult to emulate. But like people can feel free to correct me on that. But yeah, Killer Instinct's one of them, and the other is I would probably go with a Neo Geo 4-slot.
Mm-hmm.
I say it's cheating because technically that's an arcade system.
Yep.
But
it's at the home.
Yeah. So, but to play fair, I think the main game I'd want to make sure it has on would be. I'd probably go with Magician Lord.
Okay.
Like that's one of my favorite Neo Geo games.
Oh, really? I need to give that another shot. I love the soundtrack of that, but I've never been able to get super into the game. I need to give it another go.
There's
It's hard.
Yeah, I would say there's a point where it gets very unforgiving.
I like when games forgive me for not being the best. Yeah.
Well, if you think Ghouls and Ghosts is hard, you're going to break a controller over Magician Lord. But I love that game so much. The graphics are beautiful. The music just rocks. And like everything about it just tickles the brain in just the right way.
That's tickle the frame. I might have to steal that one. That was a good one. But yeah, I need to give that game another shot for sure. I don't mind difficult games as long as it's rewarding. So I'm okay with it as long as it's rewarding. So if it is rewarding, I'll give it another go. It sounds like it is. It's a nice question, Logan. Fenris was looking forward to some of our questions that we've asked before. Let's see if this was one. Logan, hit him up.
Yes, this is a classic question from previous shows so far. What really hooks you when you get to play in a game?
What really hooks me when I get to play the game? That's a good question, honestly. I'd say that what will grab my attention immediately would be the music. Mainly because that's oftentimes the first thing that comes out of a game before you play it. Because there's plenty of times where, the graphics may be great, but if the music just gets you just right, you kind of want to stay around to hear the soundtrack. Like, one example I can think of, there was a game recommended to me on the TurboGrafx 16 called Lords of Thunder. It's a shooter, but when you start up the game and the intro sequence is just like really hard rock, and I'm like, oh my god. Like, that's like the first thing that caught my attention. I'm like, okay, I know I'm probably going to have a difficult time, but I'm going to beat the game just so I can listen to the rest of that. That was awesome.
That's a great one too. I love Lords of Thunder is one of my favorites, and that soundtrack gives you chills every time for sure. But yeah, Darria's question actually comes into this. So Darria, why don't you go ahead and?
Yeah, so you talked about the blasphemy that was Corey listening to music outside of game music, but what would you say is your favorite video game music?
I guess it just really depends on what I'm in the mood for. Personally, when it comes to music, I like to listen to I like to listen to a bit of rock. I mostly like techno and lo-fi music, like anything synthetic. It just resonates with me, if you will. So I'd say like the ones that I would immediately gravitate to are very like chiptune heavy.
Oh, nice.
Just it's its own feel, you know, like you can't really describe
You're becoming a chiptune.
it, but you can feel it.
Your connection was cutting out there for a second,
Oops.
and you started sounding like a chiptune. Only the last couple
Oh,
seconds.
then
though.
I guess that
Now you're
makes it
great.
more appropriate.
Now
then.
you're perfect. Yeah, it was like you're talking about how much you love chiptunes, and then you're like becoming Mega Man 2. So it's great.
Well, then I guess that does make it more appropriate then, doesn't
It
it?
is, exactly. The gods are with us. But you're sounding great now, so continue.
Okay. Well, basically, like, chiptune music is what I immediately gravitate to. I don't know how to describe it, but it's more like you feel it. Like, it has its own distinct feeling to it that you can't really put into words. And sure, a lot of loops and bloops, but sure that they're like a massively crafted tune soundtrack.
We're losing you a little bit again. Maybe is there a different window or something you could go by that you'd get maybe a better connection? Because right when you said bloop, maybe it's just the wording. Like if you say something, your connection must make you sound like it.
Apparently,
Super.
Now it's great again. But we lost you on bloop. So
I'm
everything
sorry,
you said after
everybody. I'm
bloop. Don't worry about it. It's
No, you're
fine.
fine.
We're,
I'm sorry.
We're
I'm
happy
sorry.
we're happy to have you. It's interesting stuff. Don't worry. We can't help what happens with the connection, guys. It happens. It's better than it used to be
Yeah,
with Yahoo back 20 years ago. So that's all I'm fine with.
So that way, we're not delving too deep, too long in this question. And I'm sorry, Daria.
Oh, you can talk as long as you
TLDR.
want. We love the expounding.
Fair, but yeah, it's just that I can't really describe what I love about chiptune music. It has its own feeling that like really grabs you
Mm-hmm.
when the instrumental and the composition are just right.
Yes.
Like one of my favorites, as an example, would be Thunder Force 4 or Lightning Force, if you prefer
So good.
the American name for some
The worse you
reason.
spell it, the better it gets.
Like that soundtrack, like it hits hard, and so does the game apparently.
Yeah, it does. It it hits really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So Thunder Force 4, what are some other chiptune soundtracks? Because honestly, I want some more to listen to. Are there any others that you can recommend? I probably have heard them all, unfortunately, but if there are any, you could, maybe someone out there hasn't heard them all.
Let's see. Thunder Force 4 has an awesome soundtrack. If you're more into like NES, Shatterhand and Shadow of the Ninja have like absolutely amazing soundtracks.
So good.
But generally speaking, not so many games have good soundtracks at that era.
Yeah, those are really good examples. Shatterhand was one I didn't play until later in life. And Shadow of the Ninja has a remake out on the modern consoles too, and the soundtrack's pretty good on that one too. But Natsume always has some magic. I like a lot of their things. But so we know that you're an expert modder. Obviously, you've done work with My Life in Gaming. The folks there. How
Yes.
did you get into the modding scene and then ultimately decide to become a modder?
So this actually goes back to what made me get into retro games specifically. So 2012, 2013, if you were around like the collecting scene around that time, you would know that by then NES games were starting to increase in price.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mainly because a lot more people were getting into it thanks to like the Angry Video Game Nerd. I know some people say Game Chasers, but no, Game Chasers was later. Most people got into collecting because of Angry Video Game Nerd. But no, as a result, NES games were just starting to rise in price, and even like young teenage me was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to just buy this stuff wholesale, so I need to come up with a better plan. And videos that I would watch all the time were videos from channels like Luke Morse 1, Gadget UK, I think Retro Game Cave, I think the third one is. I don't remember the full name. But basically, they were channels that focused more on repairing systems. And that fascinated me more. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to get into collecting, this is how I want to do it. I want to get broken systems on the cheap so I can fix them and add them to my collection.
Nice.
Smart thinking.
So
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it started. Even though my first system is the first system I ever repaired was for someone else, and that is a story that is not appropriate for this stream. So maybe
gosh.
I might tell it a different day.
Well, yeah, post stream, I need to hear. I need to hear what's happened. Post stream,
I'll tell you.
Voltar had to tell us some things off camera too. I think just modders have these stories. I think. You guys must be in this club with just crazy things happening. That's cool. It's interesting to see how people get into the scene because it's really flourished, and just there's always kind of an interesting beginning. Jack, your turn, sir.
Yeah. So, speaking of people getting into the scene, lately there's been a huge uptick on like retro gaming expos, and just as you're a modder, have you ever been to any of them? Like, I know California Extreme is an example that's more like the arcade scene, but like any retro gaming expos that you've been to, or like anything like Maker Faire that you would recommend to people that want to kind of get into this and see a lot of this firsthand before they try, taking a crack at it themselves.
So gaming expos, I visited my first one back in 2024, and that was SAC Gamers Expo. It was their 10th anniversary, actually.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool. And I also got a custom Dreamcast that I built, signed by the actors who played Sonic, Shadow, and Knuckles for Sonic Adventure 2.
That's cool.
So,
nice.
But that's currently the only convention I've ever been to. I am working on doing more convention appearances because I had like a really good time from that one.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's basically where I stand in terms of that. Now, in terms of like what I can say about people going to conventions as like a way of like getting an idea of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I would say start locally. Like, see what kind of conventions occur in your area, because I feel that getting a good sense of your own retro gaming community will give you a better idea of the scene and whether or not you want to explore more of it.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah. I will go with you, Jack.
Yeah, let's do it. I gotta talk to some more people around Uptown to find out if there's one around here.
Be pretty cool. There's got to be something going on in Kansas City area. If you're out there, by the way, in the Kansas City area or any place, you could write into the game show by either commenting below the YouTube, Twitch, wherever you're at, or even better, go to breakmanx.com, click on the Discord. If you go in the game show channel there, you can talk with us. And Logan will be keeping us up to date throughout. But if you have any information about the local scene here, KC area, or for Maul, Vegas, or anywhere, we'd love to hear about the scene. Very cool. All right, Logan.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite thing in gaming right now? It could be like a tool or a game, it could be a software, just whatever.
Favorite thing in gaming? That's another good question. That's not one I've ever thought about. Personally, I've always been kind of more of I've always been more of a hardware guy. So I'm always fascinated by like new consoles coming out, basically like how the electronics work and whatnot, even though I don't take those in for repairs for multiple reasons. Honestly, I'd probably say like any sort of mods for legacy consoles. That's what always fascinates me the most, just due to the fact that like you can take these systems and you can either fix a flaw that was always there, or you can make them better than they were when they left the factory. So
Yeah.
seeing how people accomplish that is always fascinating to me.
That is a really cool aspect of, like, especially the older you go. I mean, I think we were talking like the SNES color chips in a previous episode before, like the color output and how that could be modded to be fixed. Voltar was talking about that. Other things like that. That's just a really fascinating aspect of modding.
Sure. Yes. Really cool
Yeah,
stuff out
I've
there.
actually
Is there...
gotten to install 2 of the edge enhancers.
Oh, nice. So you've got a hand on the... what is it a pretty difficult install?
Kinda. You really need to have at least stable hands to remove some of the surface mount components, but generally speaking, it's not that difficult. Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, you need to have kind of stable hands in order to work around that. But generally speaking, not really. Not to like toot my own horn, but I've installed way worse, and that's not even close to difficult for me.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, that's some nice skill set there. All right, Darria.
All right. So, what would you say is the game that you play? You just have a few minutes of the day, and you need something to relax, like your quick play kind of game.
Mega Man 7.
Okay. Why the 7th one?
Yeah.
So, do you want the full story, or do you?
I want the full story. I want
Let's
the A
get
and
the whole thing.
I want the A&E biography, true Hollywood story on Mega Man 7 and Fenris.
So,
We'll make a movie about it.
So I was born in 1995. So I was too young to experience the Super Nintendo during its prime. But I was interested. I got into Mega Man because I used to have the toys when I was a kid, and I did watch a bit of the Ruby Spears cartoon because of reruns. No. So one day, I was going through like this Mega Man compendium site where they had like all this the gallery, all this trivia about and walkthroughs about Mega Man games, and I stumbled upon a game called Mega Man 7, and instantly, what caught my attention were the sprites. Like Mega Man was detailed in such a way that makes him stand out from either the PS1 and Saturn games, or rather game, as well as the 8-bit era. Like there was something about looking at Mega Man's sprite that kind of fascinated me, and the same could be said about the Robot Man's masters, Freeze Man, Junk Man, Cloud Man, Freeze Man, Junk Man, Cloud Man, Burst Man, Shade Man, Turbo Man, Slash Man.
Nice.
I'm forgetting one more, but you get my point.
Yeah.
I was really fascinated by the sprites.
Mm-hmm.
So
They are very nice looking.
when Mega Man Anniversary Collection came out on the GameCube and PS2, later Xbox, I found out they had Mega Man 7 on it. So I went out of my way to get a copy of Mega Man Anniversary Collection on the GameCube just to play Mega Man 7. And it did not disappoint.
That's awesome.
Like that is my
Yeah, it's really cool.
that is my favorite in the classic series.
That's cool. I think you and I talked about that recently, actually on DM. But Mega Man 7, it's probably the classic series one I've spent the least amount of time with, and I'm a huge Mega Man fan, obviously. But recently, I've been playing it more, and I'm replaying it actually at the moment. And I have to say, it's really good. I applied the there's a couple patches for it. It's either the Redux or the Restoration patch. I can't remember which one, but it basically makes it play a little bit more like the other classic series games, and it changes some fonts and some things to take it a little bit more towards the other classic series games, which is kind of cool. Love giving those patches a try, but I love the artwork in 7.
Yeah.
It looks really cool. I remember seeing that in magazines and things, and so yeah, I'm glad there's a Mega Man 7 fan, and that makes me want to play it even more. And I think actually, yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. So here's a question. I know that you're wanting to answer this one, unless I'm crazy, which is very possible. But all right, you've got the time in your schedule. You have all the time in the world. What is the game
Okay.
that you would like to erase your memory and re-experience again for the first time?
I had the answer to this, but now I'm kind of second guessing my answer.
I knew you thought about it.
I would. Yeah, I thought about it initially because my original answer was, going to be my favorite game of all time, which we'll get into that later. But if I was to erase the memories of that, I'd erase what makes it important to me. So I'd probably say Final Fantasy VI or 3 for the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
Jack is gonna like that answer.
Yep.
Which version? I have to say, which version is it? The SNES version, the GBA version, the PlayStation version, the Pixel Remaster, mobile phone, toaster.
Well, I haven't played the Pixel Remaster version. I don't have the Pixel Remaster, so it would have to be the Super Nintendo version. I'm sorry, I can't handle load times in a Super Nintendo game.
I know.
PS1 version.
For sure. Yeah, no, you're cutting out a little bit again. Sounds like you're going through the Death Star trench this time. Luke, pull up!
I'm getting a good sense of distance to see how far I can step away from my audio source.
Yeah.
It seems like
it's like
Yeah.
it was awesome, and then all of a sudden it's like
Yeah. It's so. Can I go on a tangent for just a second? Because
I have not had a
Go for
Jack
it.
Burton tangent yet today, and I am ready.
All right, so just brings up. So we're talking about Star Wars Death Star Run. Have you ever thought about some of the technology that they've got in that space? Like, they have sentient droids. They have all kinds of technological wonders that let them travel through hyperspace. Seconds, but they don't have paper. Number one, and they don't also transmitting any kind of data requires like Herculean tasks, like getting the plans for the Death Star from one place to the other. It's like, hey, we have to set up this elaborate Rube Goldberg device just to get this from point A to point Z. And it just fascinates me how technology can be so advanced in one respect and just so pre World War II in others, right?
It is a really
Primitive.
interesting conversation.
It is true.
This is it's a bit meta going outside the lore and stuff, but honestly, I think it's because it's hard to really project what the future is going to be beyond what you're familiar with or what has happened in the past. So
See,
I don't think they could have predicted, the kinds of stuff
I
we
just
have
think
now.
so. I try to think like, what's a story reason that is totally just I'm making up off the top of my head that is probably not true or relevant to the actual movie. But Palpatine was able to, through his powers throughout the Empire, shut down most non-official means of transmission. So it required them to, because if you go to Episode 2, he's transmitting across the galaxy like holograms and stuff. So then you have Palpatine later coming into power and shutting down the communication. But it's a very good point you make. I'm just making something up that probably isn't right. But
they still
that's
transmit
just what
stuff
I'm-
across the galaxy in the original trilogy, though. They're still doing that.
they are, but
Yeah.
it's mostly across the like official, like it's Darth Vader, right, and Palpatine.
That's true.
You don't get a whole lot of the rebels doing it. But maybe
Right.
they've shut down maybe the Empire has shut down the method that the rebels would use, or they're trying to hide themselves, or I don't know. They don't know encryption. That's it. They haven't discovered encryption.
There you go.
They need
Or the
they need
compression
open
is so bad they can't
need-
even do it.
they need open SSL. That's what they need.
I'm trying to think also, like, your point about paper is good too. I'm trying to think whenever there's a paper.
There
think
isn't. There's
does-
none. They have zero paper in that universe.
Does Star
think
Trek have
I-
paper?
Math
thinking-
must be incredibly difficult.
Now, if you go to the sequel trilogy, I guess books did appear in the 8th movie.
They have the cubes. They have the cubes. Yeah, I guess you're right. Like the ancient Jedi texts are books, but like everything else is cubes, and that's like how half of Attack of the Clones starts, is because they get that data erased off the cube that's in the Jedi temple.
So, does Star Trek have paper?
I'm not
Yes.
as familiar with Star Trek.
It does have paper. Okay. I don't remember seeing paper, but I will take your word for it. I'm sure you're right.
Yeah, it's anyway. Sorry, it was just something that bugged me. It was I heard it on another podcast. If you guys have ever listened to A More Civilized Age, it's a pretty cool one.
No, it's interesting.
I'll have to check
It's
it
an
out.
interesting topic for sure. I love dabbling in that kind of stuff. Okay, that was cool. Fenris, do you have any comment on the lack of paper and or ability to transmit stuff in Star Wars, or should we go on to our next interrogation?
If I had to guess, Star Wars Society. So I'm not a controversial opinion, but I'm not a big Star Wars guy. My dad,
That's okay.
my dad is. My uncles are. I'm just not.
Disconnecting him? No.
If
Just
I had
kidding.
to guess, sorry. Sometimes my brain is also like kind of wishy-washy, but
No, you're totally fine. I was
That's
just
all
kidding
right. You're in
good
because
company.
you don't like Star Wars. I was gonna,
yeah.
your leader, you.
But no. Oh no. I don't feel so good, Mr. Breakman.
Ignore the person outside your window. It's just a shiny flashlight.
but no. So if I had to guess, most likely Star Wars Society had evolved so much that anything considered primitive just becomes non-existent. Like paper, for example. Like they have all this advanced technology. Why would they ever need paper and pens anymore?
Fair point.
Now, what I will say is more ridiculous than that is having a good understanding of electronics, and you find some of the terminology really stupid. For example, Back to the Future. What powers the DeLorean?
Plutonium, right?
Mr. Fusion.
Oh yeah, Mr. Fusion in the later movies.
No, so, but what's the core? Like, what powers the time machine aspect of it?
A flux capacitor.
Capacitor.
Yes. Here's the thing: in real life, that means you just dipped a capacitor in flux. Those are two. That flux is a chemical compound used to break down oxidation in metal, which is why we use it a lot in soldering. And a capacitor is an electrical component.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean,
you're
when-
saying that
They could have been using, like, flux also does mean like changing over time. They could have been using it in that term instead of like the compound flux.
Or he was modding a Game Gear and had some capacitors left over and some flux.
No, so what they showed off was like a tube system. I guess it's supposed to replicate like a diffusion port, but the way the tubes go in don't make any sense either. It's like they all come in like at a triangular stream. They're all hitting one place. Okay, where's the stream going? Is it going left up, right up, left? Like,
No, that's a good point.
like,
It just looks cool.
And then also the term gigawatt. Giga. That's giga, not giga. There is no J. It is a G.
He's a bad scientist. But no, I was on a TV pilot once, and where they had some pretty significant technical complications with the script. It was time travel, and they were existing in a time where something wouldn't have existed, but there was an advisor on set that they were paying that was saying this is not correct and won't work. And that's probably what happened there too. They usually ignore them because it's the general public's not going to know. And so might as well, just ignore the person you're paying to do that, which is very frustrating for them.
It's fun to be able to say that they had the person there.
And it's also a cool name, like flux capacitor. Yeah, no science was harmed in the production of this movie, right?
My brain cells certainly were.
Exactly. No, it happens all the time. And I was even frustrated because I was like, no, but no one noticed. And it ended up getting picked up. But anyway, Jack.
Yeah. All right. So, Fenris, obviously you love modding consoles. It's a lot of what you like to do. But which one's your favorite to actually play? Of some of the older ones that you mess with, which one's your favorite one to actually sit down and play? Is it the Super Nintendo?
Nintendo 64. Nintendo 64 is my favorite console of all time. That was the first system I ever played, and it's the system that I have the most memories with. So it's a system that to this day, I don't care if we get Switch Quattro. The Nintendo 64 will always be my favorite console of all time. I don't care if the Super Nintendo fans want to put me on a cross and then stake me. I will always say the Nintendo 64 is my favorite console of all time.
That's interesting. You and Try must be very good friends. Because he's the other person I know that's super, super into that. But yeah. Logan, why don't you hit us up with some chat? We haven't gotten to the chat yet.
So I noticed Storm Eagle asked a pretty interesting question here. He said, since you mentioned the Game Changers, Fenris, what is the craziest video game finds you've ever found in the wild? Mine is the Tengen version of Tetris at a video game store for $1. That's really good.
Because I just got back from no, I didn't just get back. It was a long shift the night prior. I get a call from one of my family members saying hey, I'm at a garage sale and they got games. I'm a little groggy, so I'm like, just send me pictures. What do I see? All 4 Dot Hack PS2 games, Dot Hack GU 1 and 2, actually 1, 2, and 3, if I remember correctly. Twilight Princess on GameCube, Wind Waker on GameCube, Skies of Arcadia Legend, all for the low price of $2 a piece. So I said, hold those for me. I'm on my way. I literally sprung out of bed, grabbed the nearest pair of pants that I could find, and I just booked it to that garage sale.
Would also have to change my pants.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't wearing any because I was asleep. But anyways.
That's a crazy haul, man.
That's amazing. That is awesome.
But that's in the wild. I've had some more interesting ones from online purchases. I'd say the one that I'm most proud of would be the Fairyland Story prototype. So, little backstory on that. So, Fairyland Story is an early set of arcade games. like we're talking pre-Bubble Bobble early.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, you could say that Fairyland Story is like the predecessor. But anyways, so it was supposed to come out on basically every platform at the time, including the Nintendo Famicom or NES, but it never did. So I'm surfing eBay one night actually, and I find a junk Famicom lot, like just a bunch of random games, and I spot this little game called Fairyland Story. And at the time, I didn't know anything about it. I'm like, what is Fairyland Story? I look it up and I find out this game was never released. I'm like, oh my God, this is a prototype cartridge. So I pulled money out of my savings because it was still a week before payday. So I could purchase this lot. I get it in. Because I wanted to verify like this was true, because the whole time I was worried, like what if someone gets a hold of it before I do? What if they contact the seller to pull that one cartridge and I only get the rest of the games I didn't want?
Yeah.
But it came in safely. I inspected it, and sure enough, it was the real deal. This is a unfinished prototype of Fairyland Story on Famicom. So I tried dumping it, and it didn't work. So I sent it to Hard for Games, which is another channel that focuses more on game preservation.
Mm-hmm.
And he was struggling to get it dumped. We had to like have this little group just to figure out how we could like get a working ROM out of it, because the game works. It just refused to be dumped. It turned out modern dumpers dump too fast for it. So we had to get a guy to write a script for our dumpers to read the game as slow as possible so it would actually dump correctly.
Oh, wow.
That's wild.
This is a really cool story, Fenris. You should do a video on this on your channel.
In terms
like, get Robert Stack to come back to life and narrate it.
Well, Hard for Games actually has a video about it. So don't have to worry about
I'll
that.
check it out.
Oh, and by the way, just so you know, when you calculate the how much I paid for the lot plus shipping, it came to about $1 and some change for each cartridge. So I paid like $1 and some change for a rare prototype cartridge.
That is amazing.
That's insane.
That is
That's
amazing. That is astounding.
So Fenris, the work that you guys did to kind of get that thing, you know, the work you did to get that dumped, like, is that something that the people have been using since then on other like prototype carts and other things where you guys had trouble with things like that?
Not to my knowledge. It was just something for that one unique case, because we were just having a hard time getting that thing dumped. It got to a point where I was tempted to just take that cartridge apart and dump its program and character ROMs myself by hand, but I really did not want to resort to that.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, well, cool.
That is really cool. Is the game any good?
It's okay for what it is. So here's something funny about it. If you look at the Nintendo lot check that got released through the Giga League, it got the lowest score. It's not a bad game.
That's still
there's
really
certainly worse games that came out on the internet.
That's really cool that you.
Worse games that came out on the.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I keep interrupting you.
Sorry, I was just saying, like, there's worse games on the NES than Fairyland Story, but I'd say Fairyland Story on Famicom, it's a decent time, even though it only has half of the levels of the arcade version. But I digress.
I want to play it and think of you for preserving this game. That is Maul and I for a while did this thing called Gamer Things, where we were like kind of going around and finding games and then reselling them online back in like the late 2000s. And we never had anything cool like that happen. Like, we went all over the place looking for stuff, and we had some decent finds. And Variance, if you're out there, I know you listen to the show. You sold us a bunch of really amazing games. Variance had like this lot of like the most amazing PS1 RPGs and like rare ones that was like ridiculous just in this box. But yeah, that's amazing. What a cool story. It's so amazing that we're now We did that start off from which console? Which was the? I don't even know what question that came from. That came from the what consoles are your favorite? I think.
That came from what's the craziest video game finds you've ever found in the wild?
Oh yeah, that came from
Stormy.
Stormy's. Okay, that's why. Okay, so we're going to Logan. That's right. I was so transfixed by that story. I just kept seeing like my eldest daughter's really into unsolved mysteries, like the old episodes. So I was like thinking of Robert Stack like coming out and being like the game that no one didn't know. You know, I can't do Robert Stack, but that would be a really cool episode of Unsolved Mysteries.
It would.
But Logan,
and to think that was the second prototype cartridge I ever found.
Oh, what was the first one?
What was the? Now I gotta know what the other one was.
So the first prototype cartridge I ever found was I was exploring eBay one day because apparently that's where most of my more interesting ones come from. And I find a copy of Toki on NES, but this one looked weird. It had no labels and it only had like a little text sheet of paper on the back of it. But they also took a picture of the bottom of the cartridge. Now here's the thing. I know a lot about cartridges. And the thing about Toki is it was a late release NES game. I think like 91 or 92.
Yeah.
But what I noticed about this one is it had a full set of 72 pins. And that would have been impossible because the board that Toki came on was a TL-ROM board, which is a basic MMC3 board, which was missing the middle pins for cost-saving reasons. So I was like, why did this one have a full set of pins? So out of curiosity, I purchased it, and it turned out it was a review copy, a prototype cartridge.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
So
like
I got in
tomorrow, you're
contact
gonna
with
wake up and have something else amazing happen to you.
Maybe not. But I did get in contact with the seller because I was hoping. I did get in contact with the seller, hoping that like maybe they were like an X magazine reviewer, so I can get more protos. No, they just found it at a used game store.
It's been really cool. He found like an ex-EGM writer or something, and he's got like a closet full of prototypes that he's gonna sell to you for 50 cents a pop.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping for, but unfortunately, I wasn't that lucky.
That would have been really cool. Well, thanks for gracing us with that story. That's a really cool story. I know what the reel is gonna be for first one off of this one. Okay. So, Logan, I don't think we got to your question, though, after...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is a mod that you absolutely love to do, and what is one that you hate doing?
A mod that I love to do and one that I hate doing. I've been waiting for this question for so long. Like, you have no idea. So, mods that I love to do... generally speaking, I try to enjoy all the mods that I do, but I'd say like the ones that I find the most satisfying are typically like ones that improve the longevity of a system. We're talking like fixes on faulty circuitry, or maybe like preventative measures to keep the system from crapping out in one way, shape, or form. One example I can think of, and this kind of ties into what made me kind of more well known. Even though my favorite system is the N64, I am known as the Super Nintendo guy because I used to post so much about fixing the Super Nintendo to the point where I know that system from inside out. But one of the things that you can do to your Super Nintendo is called the VCC rail fix. So the problem with the Super Nintendo is it's a piece of dung, because from a hardware standpoint. So Nintendo was really cheap when putting together this system, and it has so many freaking faults. But one in particular is they really skimped out on the voltage rails in terms of like filtering. The only thing they give you for like filtering on like the main chipset is like a dinky little ceramic capacitor that's like ineffective. So it produces a lot of extra noise. So to kind of go around this, you have to put like extra 100 microfarad capacitors on top of those ceramics that are tied to the VCC rail of the main chipset. That way, it's more stable. So reduces noise. It doesn't fix like the blurring issues that you find on 3-chip systems. I don't care if people say 2-chip. It is 3-chip. You will fight me on it. But
I know there's a debate about that.
It doesn't fix the blurring, but it will at least clean up some of the noise. Like stuff like that, I like to do because it feels like I'm giving these systems more life. Like I feel like I'm extending their life. Now, what are the mods that I really hate to do? Anything that requires my face to be close to the board as possible due to how small everything is. But more specifically, I hate working on 3DSs or DS systems. Good God! I would rather get ran over by Donkey Kong riding a freaking go-kart than ever work on a DS or a 3DS. Sweet mother of God. Everything is so small. It is so tiny. And to make matters worse, there is a ribbon that goes through. It's a top screen ribbon, but as if Nintendo couldn't punch you in the balls any harder because you have to coil that around the plastic to get it through a little slit. But to make matters worse, they put a metal ring along the hinge, so if you flinch just once, you will cut the ribbon and destroy the top screen. Nintendo, why do you hate me so much?
So I have a 3DS that no.
What even kind of mods have you had to do for the DS and 3DS?
Most of the time, it's the capture card mods. Like, people really like the capture card mods for 3DS. I hate the capture card mods for 3DS. Because as if trying to disassemble it because there's like 9 million screws wasn't bad enough. You then have to put it back together, and my God, everything, it has to be put in a very specific orientation for it to fit, and you also have to make sure you don't cut the fucking ribbon while doing so.
I think that's the first F-bomb this time around. That's awesome. So the impenetrable fortress of the 3DS is something that you don't like. This is completely different mod, but have you done Project Stellar, the Xbox mod? Is that one pretty easy, straightforward to do?
It looks straightforward. I've never installed one before. I've never... I don't know if I would want to install one, mainly because original Xbox isn't like something I'm like super big on. Don't get me wrong, the original Xbox is awesome. There's a lot of really cool mods for it. I just find that like with how easy a lot of the mods are, it's not as fulfilling, if you will.
I gotcha.
It's why I don't particularly care for like the Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance mods. They've become so easy to a point where it's not fun to build them.
Okay, so like a challenge.
It's all plug and play. Yeah, I like the challenge. I like to be challenged both physically with my soldering skills and mentally with having to think around the box. But when everything's just plug and play, you take that fulfillment away. And it's like, at that point, it's not fun.
I gotcha. Well, it's just a mod that I've been interested in. Because I need to. There's some Xbox games I didn't play back in the day, and just in general, it's kind of the one system that I haven't touched, and I need to like kind of restore it so it keeps operating for long periods of time. Get the thermal paste all cleaned up and all that stuff too. But Darria, why don't you challenge him mentally?
So, how did you get connected with Corey and Triforce from My Life in Gaming?
So I've always been a fan of My Life in Gaming. Like, well, maybe not always in the sense that I've been there since the very beginning, but rather I came across their videos one day when I was learning about this magical thing called RGB. Let me tell you something. RGB, when you get into like high quality video and stuff like that for retro systems, you're going down a rabbit hole that you will never claw your way out of. Just when you think that you're about ready to be free, suddenly a big arm comes out and says, "Nah, your wallet is mine." But anyways,
I'm still down there.
But no, so I ran across them because I was a big fan of their channel, and I'm also one of their Patreon supporters. So yeah, but I got the opportunity to connect.
Sounds
with
like
them.
you're in a boat now.
Yeah, they're just ignore the sound of wheels right behind me.
Okay.
But no, so I got to meet them personally, I guess. I've never met them face to face, but I got to chat with them personally because if I remember correctly, they my memory's a little fuzzy on this part, so bear with me here. So if I remember correctly, they said that they were looking for specific consoles, like they didn't have specific consoles or something like that. And I just kind of like casually reached out to them, like saying, "Hey, I don't mind giving you some of these systems because I have spares of them." And then one thing led to another, and yeah. And then I started posting more about my work, or rather my hobby, with like retro game mods and whatnot, and they started getting interested in it too. So we would I remember that we would talk about like some of the mods they were interested in, and I'm like, "Yo, like if you want, I can install them." I did some work. I do a lot of work. I've done most of the work for Try. I'm still waiting on Corey to be like, "Hey, I have this thing I want to mod." No fault on his end. It's just more of like, I must bring balance to the force. I'm doing a lot of work for Try. Corey, if you have something that that you want modded, just let me know.
I swear he mentioned something about having you do some work.
I think he has. He's mentioned a couple things that he was interested in me doing, but it never really went anywhere. I mean, again, no fault of his. I think it's just more of like a timing thing.
Mm-hmm. He's really busy too.
So, yeah, he's also really busy. So again, I don't fault him. It's just more of like, I feel bad because it's like I'm doing a lot of work for Try, and it's like I feel like Try's gotten more of my services than Corey has, and I feel like, am I just leaving him out at this point? Like, I feel super bad.
I gotcha. Well, very cool. Well, if someone were to desire your services in modding, how would they go about obtaining them?
Just reach out to me directly. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm tangentially on Instagram. I don't really like visit Instagram a lot. It's kind of one of those things, like I pop in like once in a blue moon. But you know, if you ever spot me on like Discord or something like that, like in one of the servers, you know, hit me up. Ping me on the server first, because I do have like a friends only thing going. So but yeah, I don't really like set up a site or something like that. One, because PayPal's kind of vicious right now on modders.
Yes, it is.
And two, I really just do this realistically, I just do this for fun. You know, I'm not Voltar, I'm not iFix Retro, I'm not someone who does this for a living. And there's nothing wrong with doing it for a living. It's just, I personally only do it for fun. Like, it's just something that I do when I just get off like an 8-hour shift and I just feel like tinkering with something.
I gotcha. So, Fenris Wolf Retro on Blue Sky, or hit him up on Discord. He's in our Discord, of course. You can get to know him there, or he's in the My Life in Gaming Discord, and probably a few others as well. What are the systems and services you do offer?
Generally speaking, I work on a lot of systems pre Xbox 360 PS3 era. Mainly because those are the systems that I find to be within my skill set to actually work on. When it comes to like PS3 and 360, we're entering like reballing territory, and that's something that I do not have the tools for. Like, I will work on Wii's though. Wii's are actually pretty simple to work on. They just got a lot of screws.
Nintendo, they're trying to keep you out. I tell you, no mods for them. Well, very cool. That's awesome. I saw the Game Gear stuff that you did for Try. That was pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, that was an interesting story.
Tell it.
so-
I mean, who knows what rare thing we're gonna find in this one?
So basically, I think he said that he initially said like he was going to get in touch with me about doing some Game Gear stuff. I ended up getting in touch with him about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, lay it out for me. What do you need done? And initially, it was like just a recap and like something for the screen, because the screen was kind of iffy. But so I was like, hey, we could do a backlight mod, because he wanted to keep it more original looking. And the thing is with Game Gears, yes, they technically have backlights, but it's more like a fluorescent tube. It's actually kind of dangerous to have to work on Game Gears, because it has like this little bulb, and I think it actually contains mercury, so don't break it. It's basically like those shop lights, except miniaturized.
I could see that. Yeah.
And it drains a lot of power. So if you remove that, you can get like a little LCD backlight kit that's literally just like a little plastic rectangle with LED bulbs.
Mm-hmm.
And that will actually improve the battery life significantly on the Game Gear.
Nice.
As well as give a more even brightness. And then we were talking video mods. Initially, he thought about doing like the GGHD mod, which uses a what's it called? I think it was a 10 nano FPGA board. But the problem with those is that it doesn't have sound over HDMI. So I proposed instead something called the GGTV, which intercepts the digital video signals and converts it into analog video, so composite, S-video, and RGB. And he was into that. And I also offered the idea of doing a controller modification. He was into that too. So you could use like Genesis controllers and whatnot.
That's cool.
Sends it all my way. And I get the thing recapped. It was working. Got the backlight screen installed. That's working. And then it quickly dawned upon me, how in God's name am I going to fit the GGTV and the controller board in such limited space? So I stare at it. I ponder. I'm pondering my orb, trying to figure this out. And it dawned. So what I had to do was I took the GGTV mod and I mounted it on the back of the backlight panel, because that was the way I could get the shortest wire routing. Because when it comes to like doing video mods, you need to make sure that you have the shortest route possible. Otherwise, you could introduce extra interference during signal transmission. So I get that in, wire it up, works. And then the hardest part was actually the controller mod. The only other space I could mount the board was underneath the cartridge slot, which wasn't a problem, except for the fact that also where I needed to put the I/O for the video and the controller port. And it's a very tight fit.
Yeah.
So I had to I had to literally have the thing half open like a clam, solder a bunch of wires for like video and the controller port, and then slowly close it just so everything could fit.
That's amazing.
That thing's not.
It was a
you
really
heard
cool stream.
Not do future maintenance on it.
That My Life in Gaming stream that you were on doing the Game Gear stuff. That was a cool stream. It's cool to hear the story behind it. Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, it was one of the most interesting ones for sure.
Yeah.
No, I was saying like it was the most interesting one for sure.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
I'm gonna have to check that video out because
Yeah,
I've tried to fix a broken Game Gear before, and oh my god!
I'm glad you're still here. It sounds like they're dangerous.
I mean, yeah, they're you get it opened up. I've tinkered with the Lynx and I've tinkered with the Game Gear, and the Lynx was by far easier to work with.
You have a Lynx?
The game. I did. It got damaged in the move to the new house.
Oh yeah. That's that's too bad because I've always wanted to play. I've played like Lynx on emulators. That's one of the few consoles I haven't played like in person. It'd be cool to play one of those. But it is your turn, Jack. So go ahead.
Yeah. All right, Fenris. So outside of the traditional well-known consoles from like 1985 and on, let's say nothing Nintendo, Sega, Atari, any of those, Microsoft. What is one retro console or computer you think everybody should try at least once, and why? And also, what game should they try?
So it cannot be from a traditional company.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go with the answer I'm currently thinking because of price.
Uh-huh.
So instead, I'm going to go with the PC Engine.
Oh,
All right.
The NEC PC Engine. Or TurboGrafx 16, depending on your flavor.
so good.
But the best way I could describe that system is it's the NES 2.0. It shares enough DNA with the NES that it feels more like a continuation of that platform rather than a full-on replacement.
Yeah. There was an episode of Retro Force Go was a podcast back in, I believe, like the late. It actually might even still be going, but Chad Conselmo of Destructoid was on there, who's a buddy of mine, and but anyway, they had someone from NEC, or I don't know if it's from NEC, but a former person that was deeply involved with the PC Engine TurboGrafx 16. I can't remember exactly their role because it's been a few years, but they told some pretty interesting stories about how it came to be, and supposedly there was a pitch to Nintendo first for what kind of became PC Engine hardware as as some of the add-on chips for the cartridges for the NES, and Nintendo rejected it, and so then it went to NEC. So I've always also thought NES 2.0, which is so cool to have a console right in that spot that fits that niche. Very cool. I beat Salamander today on the PC Engine.
Yeah,
proud of myself. I'm on like a Konami shooter kick. So
now,
great choice.
Do you have a way to play Salamander 2?
I have it. Can play it emulated. I don't think is there an official way to play it?
Not a home version that I'm aware of. But I was gonna say, yeah, if you need we can talk afterwards.
Okay, let's.
I think it was ported to PlayStation under the Salamander Gold Pack.
Oh, was it? I have
that might be, yeah.
Okay, I do have.
And only.
I have the Saturn version. I wonder if it's on the Saturn version. I'll have to check because I know I played.
There's a guy that I know. He was actually the guy that kind of taught me a lot about modding and whatnot. His name is Ace9921. He's the guy who actually created the Mega Amp, which is a modification for the Sega Genesis that it balances the audio of all Genesis revisions to be equal to the VA3 Model 1.
So cool. I have the triple bypass, which comes from that.
Yeah, integrates that. But no, he's like really big in like shooters and whatnot.
Mhm.
So if only he was here, then he could be able to correct me if it was on PS1 or not. But if I remember correctly, it is on PS1, just only released in Japan.
Gotcha. Well, I will check it out because I should play Salamander too. Sure. Because the first one, I love the music, especially. PC Engine music is my favorite of the renditions that I've heard so far. But, cool. I love your choice. Was the expensive one the New Earth Neo Geo?
Neo Geo.
Yeah. I kind of figured.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, as much as I love the Neo Geo, even if you were to go the cheapest option, which is MVS, you're going to be paying a lot.
Yeah. I've always wanted one, like, but I just can't justify the cost. I have a Mister, and the Mister version of that is pretty dang good. So I'm happy with it. But if anyone wants to give me a Neo Geo, I would welcome it with open arms.
We might be talking later, but anyways.
Ooh.
All right, thank you for listening to the game show, and all right. I can't even think now. Logan, hit the chat.
Okay, I'll think for you.
Yes.
So, Storm Eagle asks, what is an easy and hard mod to do for the Sega Genesis?
Easy and hard. Easiest mod would have to be, I'd say the triple bypass. On a Model 2, it's actually really easy to do. It's just there's a lot of wires involved, but it's not that hard. Hardest would have to be the Mega Switch HD, which is an HDMI mod specifically for the Model 1. There's a lot involved with it, and it's really easy to screw up.
What is so difficult about it that it makes it really easy to screw up? Is it just the soldering point or something else?
I think if I remember correctly, there are some flex cables involved. So, and you're going to be doing like a lot of precision soldering.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I really like the triple. I have the Zaxor version of it. Really, I love it. Sounds so good.
Mm-hmm.
That Monster World footage I captured for the reel yesterday came from that console. Anything else, Logan, or you can move on to your question?
One other recent comment also from Storm Eagle says, my dude, that is awesome. All the dot hack games are $2. GG. Yeah, that's an incredible deal.
One of the show listeners sent me one of the dot hack games, and it took me like a year to beat it. And then I finally sent it back. Yeah. Because I was backed up.
That makes sense. All right. Well, I'll move on to my question.
Do it.
So, let's talk about some of your favorite games. Without needing to put them in order, what are some of your absolute favorite games and series?
Okay. Brace yourself. I'm going to do it quick.
You sound like
top 10 favorite games.
we've taken mind-altering substances now. Which is fine with me. I mean,
You sound like you're down a hallway.
or that.
Am I?
Are you?
You sound like
It
you're in a-
sounds
yeah, you're
really
in a
cool,
tunnel.
to be honest with you. Like, I don't mind it at all.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. It sounds like you're in a tunnel now, but it's cool. Go
It
ahead.
does sound cool. I'm excited for you to listen back to it.
How do I sound now?
We've gone further. We're a little bit more high now.
Yeah.
Oh
my God.
Thanks for
Now you got
keeping track, Logan.
echoes.
I feel like it's just a word, Patricia. What's the phrase?
It's all good. You can go ahead. You can go ahead and answer. I shouldn't have brought attention to it. It just sounded really cool.
Okay.
Lightsaber ignited.
So
favorite games, I'm going to give you 5 of them. So, top 5 favorite games. It would be Mega Man 7, and this is in no particular order. Mega Man 7, Castlevania Dracula X, Shadow of the Ninja.
This is a good list.
Dra-
Final Fantasy 9,
Oh. Okay.
and Ocarina of Time.
Now, when you say Dracula X, do you mean Dracula X Rondo of Blood or
Rondo of
Dracula
Blood.
X for the Super Nintendo? Okay, good.
I'm
Rondo of
curious
Blood
about
is so good. I mean, I know everyone knows that, but it's just so ridiculously good. And the music.
I'm curious about Final Fantasy IX in that list. Why that one specifically over any of the other ones?
So the reason why I like 9 is because it not only was it like the last game to really have a fantasy vibe to it in the Final Fantasy series, but I just really love the characters in 9.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Like especially the main 4s, Zidane, Garnet, Steiner, and Vivi. Like I feel like I feel like Squaresoft or Square Enix really they really pulled all the stops for making characters that actually feel like real people in a way. Like yeah, it's a fantasy world, but at the same time, like when you go through the story, you really feel for these characters, what they struggle with, what they're thinking. When they find
themselves, how they and whether or not their resolves break or not. It's it feels very emotional to me because you can have a good story, but when you have good characters, it resonates with you more.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I need to play Final Fantasy 9 again. I played it. I've only played through it once. I need to play it again. Good list.
You used to be able to buy it directly from Square Enix, the PS1 version. Like, up until like 2024, they were selling brand new copies of that game.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the PS1. I played it when it first came out. I had mono really bad, so I always feel like I need to play it another time when I'm not like horrifically sick. But Darria, got a question about death.
In a weird way, but so this is George behind me. But anyway, you have the opportunity to bring one long dead video game franchise back to life for a new original game. What would you pick?
F-Zero.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
For God's sakes, Nintendo. I don't care if Sega did F-Zero better. Give me another F-Zero entry that's not a battle royale.
Oh, that would be so good. I keep hoping that something for the Switch, even if it's like a remake of the Super Nintendo version, but like modernized a bit.
Yeah.
I would be okay with that.
Please remake or port GX.
Yeah, I say if we don't count F-Zero 99, then definitely. I mean, yeah, it's been dormant for over 20 years now.
Apparently,
Oh my God, it has been
was,
20 years. Stop it. Oh, God.
I know.
I was like, wait, GX, and nope.
Yeah.
Correctly, he proposed a version of F-Zero modern platforms
We're back to chiptune.
that had like online mode and whatnot, but Nintendo turned it down.
Ooh. That's crazy. Sometimes they turn down
I'm
like
why?
the most like layup projects.
Yeah. I love F-Zero. F-Zero is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. It was actually the first when I opened the Super Nintendo on Christmas. I'm pretty sure I played F-Zero before I played Super Mario World because I'd seen it on TV and I'd played Mario before, and even though I was super excited for it, F-Zero looked like something I'd never played ever.
Yeah,
And
there's something whether it's any of them. I think the number one thing they got to nail is that sense of speed. Like you get that out of the Super Nintendo, you get that out of the 64 one mostly, but definitely out of AX.
and the music.
Yeah.
The music is so good. I like. I still.
Some of my favorite music from the Mario Kart 8 courses that they put in there.
Yeah.
I still groove to Mario Kart to Mario Kart to F-Zero all the time. Nest, I'll never be able to say this name, but it's like Ness and Nostalgia and Metallica like mixed together. It's like Nostalgica or something. But they're banned on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. And their newest album has Big Blue on it, and then one of their older ones has Mute City. Some fabulous renditions of that.
So, fun fact.
Go ahead.
So, fun fact. F-Zero X, if you get the OS, so the soundtrack for or OST for F-Zero X, it's in stereo. You play it from a CD, but it's in mono. You play it from the cartridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that. I have like a Plex server with all my game music on it. That's a really good soundtrack. It's a really good soundtrack. F-Zero X. And that's like the only 64 game that runs in 60 frames per second consistently, isn't it? Or one of the only?
One of them.
That's impressive for F-Zero.
Yes, yes, and that's mainly because the polygon count is like minimal.
I remember renting the game F-Zero X, and I don't know. I was a bit disappointed, and maybe I shouldn't have been, but I loved F-Zero so much for the SNES, and when I played F-Zero X, I was like, this is not what I wanted. And then I loved the GameCube one.
But man, the soundtrack on F-Zero X though, that goes so hard.
It might be the best one.
Like, trust me when I say this, if you're driving around and you play that soundtrack, you feel like you want to just go blazing down the road.
That's true.
It's so high octane, and I love it.
I wonder if
Fantastic.
I know I have the I have the original here. I'll put some F-Zero on there. Here we go. Endless challenge.
Nice.
There we go. Yep.
Here we go. So our listeners are listening to some F-Zero X in stereo from the OST. It's delicious. Tastes so good in my ears.
The cartridge plays it.
Ooh, so good. All right. It'll still be in the background, but I'm turning it down a little bit. Okay. So this is I love, and I've said this a few different times, but I really love the hardware generations kind of before the before kind of the PS3 360 generation, although they had some differences. But I love the hardware quirks between the different systems. They all were designed differently, and they all had their strengths and their weaknesses and their quirks. So what are some of your favorite quirks from really any of these systems? Anything they do well, anything that they don't do well, or just, something they do that's weird?
Well, Breaker, I promised I would do it. So sit down.
I'm
because
sitting.
I'm about to list every favorite quirk from every system.
Oh, that's right. Here we go.
So okay, Atari 2600. What I like about the Atari 2600 is the fact that it has a nice wood front panel. I mean, unless you get the Vader version. So that's a neat little quirk that I like. And television. It's got a disc for a D-pad. That's kind of neat. ColecoVision.
This is great.
ColecoVision is probably like my favorite system out of like the Atari era. Like, I'm sorry, the games just kind of felt better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Atari fans, but anyways, Atari 5200. This thing is an absolute unit. Atari 7800. It's basically the 2600 plus. Nintendo Entertainment System Front Loader Edition. My I can take these cartridges and slide it in like a VHS player. It's neat. NES edition, top loader edition. This is the only version you need because it can actually play the cartridges.
Yep.
Oh my god. Super Nintendo. The games are good, but you know what? Look at this thing. It's a brick with more bricks. Sega Genesis Model 1. It has a pretty sleek design, but what I like most about it is it's got a headphone jack. I can listen to my music in stereo and blow my ears out. Genesis Model 2. Genesis Model 2. Honestly, I prefer the form factor of the Model 2 over the Model 1. I'm sorry, Sega fans. This is more sleek to me. And plus, I don't have to do some weird things just to get stereo from the same port as my AV cables. Genesis Model 3.
Oh.
It's tiny. Not sure what you want me to say about it.
It's like a Discman.
Let's see. TurboGrafx 16. What have they done to my boy, the PC Engine? It's so huge! Neo Geo. Why is it even bigger?
Because it's so expensive.
Atari Lynx. Why is it so bulky? Game Boy. This is somewhat better, but it's just the same shape of a brick. Game Gear. How is this even more bricky? The Atari Jaguar. It's named after a cat, but it's not very threatening. But I guess what I like about it is that it exists. 3DO. Who even afforded this back in the day? I mean, I guess it looks like a CD player. Not really much else to say about it. Pioneer Laser Active.
Don't question Trip Hawkins.
Who thought to put a video game console in a Laserdisc player? I'm supposed to be performing karaoke on this thing, not playing freaking Tetris.
This is great. I'm enjoying this.
CDI. If you know anything about the Philips CDI, what I love about this thing is the fact that Nintendo allowed Mario and Zelda to be put on this thing, and the cutscenes are legendary.
So high quality.
Okay, another era system. Game Boy Pocket. It's tiny.
Very tiny.
I hope it gets smaller. Game Boy Color. This is the system that I remember the most. And as great as it is, I don't like the fact that I can't freaking see it.
Unless you're sitting on the sun.
Nintendo 64. This thing has 4 controller ports, plays cartridges, and is honestly the best party system that you can have from this era. Also, it's got Buck Bumble. PlayStation 1. This thing is iconic. Like when it comes to like defining moments in video game history, the PlayStation certainly makes an impact. I also like the fact that it has memory card slots. It's neat.
It does look
Sega
really
Saturn.
cool.
Hey, wait a minute. Didn't you skip over the 32X and CD? I am going to pretend that the 32X and CD don't exist. Thank you very much. So
Corey's
Sega
gonna be
Saturn.
upset.
They just artwork.
Sega Saturn. What I like about this system is I feel that Sega of America did this system really dirty because the Japanese library is just way better than what we got here.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Also, I like the Saturn controller over the PS1 controller. Fight me, fans.
Oh, I'm with you on
The
that.
Dreamcast.
Saturn controller is one of my favorite, if not my favorite controller of all time. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your list. Keep going.
Yeah, Dreamcast. You were done so dirty by the PS2. PS2. Why were you the #1 best-selling console? Actually, I know why. It's because you got DVD player. Original Xbox. This thing can kill an intruder.
Yes.
Controller. The original controller was so big too.
Yeah, and the Duke is the best thing to have ever been made, and no one can fight me on that one. Nintendo GameCube. It had a lot of neat ideas. Unfortunately, Nintendo didn't understand that mini DVDs do not actually translate to more games.
Mm-hmm.
Extra loading time.
Xbox 360. Why is it on fire? PS3.
Can relate to that.
Wii. Nintendo Wii. Yay! I'm swinging my arm around like I got Parkinson's.
Oh my god.
Oh wait, I just broke the TV screen. Great.
Yeah.
At least it's got Mario Galaxy. Nintendo Wii U. Why do you exist? PS4. PS4. Honestly, this is probably the most boring system that I've ever had to play with. Xbox 360. How does it get even more boring? Nintendo Switch. I mean, it's a neat gimmick. I like the fact you can slide the controllers off. PS5. PS5. This thing looks like Seto Kaiba if you ripped his head off. Xbox Series. Oh, this is a game console? I thought it was a refrigerator.
Yep.
It does look like totally.
Why are there two of them?
This was nice. That was definitely prepared. I enjoyed it.
Pretty good rundown.
I knew you were going to do that. My favorite, I think, was the 360 being on fire. Because I'm pretty sure mine did catch on fire at one point.
I don't get all the hate for the 3DO, man. Trip Hawkins was a genius.
Oh, wait, I did forget a couple systems. Neo Geo Pocket, let's just blaze through them real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Neo Geo Pocket Color. I like the fact that the stick is really clicky. Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
PSP. This thing is very long, but no, it did not beat the DS. I don't care what you say, fanboys. PS Vita. This thing did not have a chance against the 3DS.
Nice.
And there we go. All the systems.
Nice.
Thank you. That was
Nice.
a
Very
wonderful
good.
rundown.
Applause. Applause. Very good. That was nice. That was fun. All right. Well, I don't know if he's prepared for this one, Jack, but go ahead.
Yeah. So being a modder, Fenris, I'm sure you've got thoughts around right to repair. So do you think the current laws and regulations in the U.S. are too restrictive, or do you think there are do you think they're fine and that there are just certain things that need to be done to improve?
Oh boy. Okay, this is a question that I really never thought about. So, I personally, I'm not going to comment about our current laws because that's entering into territories I'd rather not get into.
Sure, I understand.
Don't blame you.
But I will say this. I think we the people should have every right to repair our systems, and we should get support from companies to allow us to do so. I don't think it's fair for companies, especially like what was shown in the recent CES, to just keep making technology that's designed to basically just be thrown away. Like, I don't think we should be progressing with this mindset that technology should just be disposable. We should be able to keep these systems alive. We should, whether it's a game system or a laptop or a phone. These are usable devices for everyday purposes. Why are we treating them like they're just throwaway items? It's very wasteful and it's not only destructive to the environment, but it's also just a waste because there are plenty of computers from over a decade ago that are still good today.
Mm-hmm.
Why should we have to throw it away just because it's not slim sized?
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for consoles too. Like, dude, I can't afford a PS5. So, why should I go through the notion that something like a PS4 should be thrown away? Why should I believe that PS3 should be thrown away? Oh, how dare you be poor is basically the mentality of it. But it's like, dude, these older systems have games that are fun to play. I don't think they should just go away from time just because you don't want to help us keep them alive.
I agree.
Yeah, no, it's
Awesome.
perfectly good.
Good. Very good answer. Very good answer.
Mhm.
Logan, do you want to hit us up with the last bits of chat here and also your question after?
Yeah. Actually, the only newest chat message is another from Storm Eagle. Thank you for commenting. PS5 spot on, referring to your description. Yeah, that is a pretty funky looking console, isn't it?
I think you can skip that one.
Cool. Okay, so my question. Why are classic and retro games just as compelling as modern?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Why are classic and retro games just as compelling as modern games?
I feel that retro games, so I would actually argue they're more compelling, to be honest. I mean, sure, you got the big budget titles like God of War, Uncharted, or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, a lot of companies these days don't really care about the heart and soul of gaming. They just care about the bottom line. Like, you'll have games that people put their blood, sweat, and tears into crafting, and it does no numbers whatsoever. And then these big companies say, like, we're not going to try again at that point. We're just going to keep throwing out schlock. It makes it's modern gaming is all about numbers and how much they can nickel and dime you in every which way. Whereas old games, it was just about the fun. It was about giving you an experience. It was the developers having fun making something that they enjoy so you can enjoy it too. Like, even the worst games that you can find on Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, they were at least interesting in some way. And I feel that we lost that with modern gaming. Sure, it's there in the indie scene, but the indie scene doesn't get any highlight from big companies. They would rather pretend that they don't exist.
Very true.
With a lot of the big companies, I'd say that's definitely the case. But I mean, you still have like some indie developers that are definitely like, what's his name? The guy that made Balatro. Like there's things like that. The Vampire Survivors guy. Like they're not trying to nickel and dime everybody. But by and large, yes, I completely sympathize with the point you're trying to make, because it does feel like it a lot of times.
Yeah, the only companies I've ever seen acknowledge indie games were Microsoft and Nintendo, but only like kinda. Usually Nintendo would have like an indie showcase, which is great. I'd say like Nintendo does a better job at highlighting indie games than Microsoft does. Microsoft just kind of like mentions them, and if they do good enough, they just buy out the company. Because of course, Microsoft needs to collect companies like their Infinity Stones.
Yes, they do. I've been talking about it for 22 years now. No big surprise. All right. Nice. All right. Logan,
I just asked mine. I think
you just
Daria's
asked
next.
yours. Sorry, I was distracted by some faulty roll going on YouTube. Darria.
What mod do you think has the biggest changes in quality or experience?
What mods do I think have the biggest changes in quality or experience? I'd say I would probably. That's a good question. Mainly because, like, there's plenty of mods that do that. I could talk about how ODEs really changed the game in terms of, like, being able to make these games accessible and, actually be able to play on hardware that otherwise had burnt lasers. Like, we're not able to source, like, a lot of lasers for certain disc-only consoles. So having an ODE would certainly keep them running for years to come. I mean, sure, you're playing off SD, but better than a laser that's destined to burn out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could also mention RGB and HDMI mods for systems that don't normally have that. Like, I feel that that's a real game changer in terms of like being able to play these systems in higher quality or just with much more convenient cabling.
Mm-hmm.
And moreover, they look better than they did stock.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So I
agree.
think it's a tie between those two.
Awesome. Very good selections. Well, this has been a lot of fun. You've been very entertaining. Loved your stories, loved your tales of the modding. This was a lot of fun. Jack, before we ride off into the sunset, is there anything you'd like to bring to our attention?
Boy, no, I think I mentioned it in our Discord the other day, but Sayonara Wild Hearts. If anybody caught our episode with Corey last week, it was one of his favorite games, if not his favorite game of all time. It's on sale right now on PlayStation Store, so go check it out if you haven't already. I've been playing through it again, and it's just as good. I introduced my son to it, and so
Nice.
it's been kind of fun watching him get to play through it too.
Very cool. Logan, how about you, sir?
Yeah. So I said last week that I got the VFX done for my short film. I've been working on a trailer this week. That's about ready to go. So should be airing on the show next week.
Nice.
Exciting.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to
yeah.
showing that trailer for sure. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome. And Darria.
Just continuing to play through the DLCs for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And after that, I'm gonna be revisiting some of the other games I've downloaded.
Nice.
Thanks
Yeah.
twice.
So, Alan Wake is next, right? Alan Wake.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I have that downloaded. And then once I've actually like made some good progress through that, I'm gonna start downloading the second one so I can just jump right in.
Fantastic.
Awesome. And Fenris, you got the last word.
Am I alive?
You are.
Yes.
You are.
Okay. Sorry. I had a random call. Last word. Thank you for having me here, man. This was real fun.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. We had a ton of fun as well. This was really cool. Well, things are continuing on with me. It's been a really awful few weeks, but continuing forth and continuing to work on the movie, and I cannot wait to see everybody again next week for the game show.